Tim, thanks so much for being with us today. Start us off by talking a little bit about Chris Frazier and how she got into the situation she's in and being evicted.
Yeah, well, Chris lived in her home in that house for 18 years, and she reached out to us, and it was just a clear case of foreclosure fraud. The Investment One Corporation didn't even have any claim to foreclose in the first place, and she had tried to modify several times, and this was just a clear case of an investment company claiming to hold a deed but not being able to prove that to any court.
Yeah, and Atlanta is definitely one of the cities that's dealing with foreclosures, in pretty great numbers. But there's something really troubling about this one in particular, and it's the way the eviction occurred. Talk a little bit about what happened that night.
Well, at 3 a.m., 40 sheriff's officers stormed Chris's property, broke down the door, pulled guns on her, her 85-year-old mother, her daughter, and her 3-year-old grandson, and told them to act as if it was a fire drill. Grandmother wasn't allowed to get dressed. They had to get out in 5 minutes. They put the animals in the pound, and they basically treated her like a major drug dealer. And this was just totally unprecedented. And as far as we could see, that this was Sheriff Brown's attempt to crush anybody that was standing up to an illegal foreclosure.
Yeah. Now, you were among other activists who were actually camped out outside Chris's home. So you were there firsthand. Talk a little bit about what it was like for you as well to witness that.
Well, I actually was away that night and got the call at 3. And we loaded up a bus and drove up to the neighborhood. And it had been totally militarized. The whole neighborhood was blocked off. Cars were not allowed in and out, not just on her property, but her whole neighborhood. So it was really quite a spectacle. And finally, when the news media showed up, we just walked in risking arrest, and the police did make way. It really was a nightmare in her neighborhood that night.
Now, real brief, talk a little bit about what she's doing now and what the next steps are for Chris and her family.
Well, being that the case was in federal court, we just totally didn't expect this to happen. Normally, folks won't be evicted if there's an active case. So we were totally unprepared. We had to raise money to get a moving van and get her in a new place. Finally, Chris and her family are under one roof, but this is a temporary housing situation. So we're still struggling to raise money to deal with the moving costs, and we're fighting to win the house back.
Yeah, well, Tim, unfortunately, that's all the time that we've got, but thank you so much for sharing Chris's story with us.
Thanks for having us on.